so early. You guys want to get some coffee or something?
Can I get a cup of coffee? Black? Can't you see we talking? White?
Even little kids in Mexico drink coffee.
Well, I'm not a little kid in Mexico, okay?
That is the best coffee I've ever tasted.
A damn fine cup of coffee.
You want a cup of coffee?
No coffee.
Coffee drinker, huh?
Maybe we could grab some coffee?
Coffee! Coffee, 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 coffee!
God damn, Jimmy. That's some serious gourmet shit. Me and Vincent would have been satisfied with some freeze-dried Taster's Choice, right? And he springs this serious gourmet shit on us.
Well, good morning. This is Don Ecker, who is currently filling in for Gerry, who has been experiencing a power outage. Now, this wouldn't be morning coffee with Gerry unless we started off the show with a fuck. So there. Now, I'm still counting, Gerry, when you tune in. So we're already off to 3. Now, this is UFO Wednesday. It is approximately 45 minutes after this regular start time, which today, of course, we weren't sure exactly what the heck happened. Martin, are you still around there, buddy? Because all I see is me. And if I'm going to be filling in, pal, I'm going to put the onus on you to be my sidekick, my co-host.
Oh.
So do you got your pretty mug there ready to go?
Yes, I'm here. Almost.
Well, I see your avatar, dude. I don't see you.
And you won't.
Okay. Well, Gerry, basically, we weren't sure exactly what in the heck was going on this morning. Apparently, overnight, where Gerry's at in Missouri, they had a power outage. And this morning, about 10 minutes after the hour, 10 minutes after the show should have started, I started to try to call Gerry. Martin tried to call Gerry. We got his voicemail. Anima Confusa tried to call Gerry, and we weren't sure exactly what in the world was happening. Finally, he turned on his cell phone. He had been charging it up overnight, and unfortunately still didn't have power. Now, he just texted Martin and Anima a few minutes ago and let them know he was trying to get signed on to the internet. He still apparently is having some problems with that. Did you, by any chance, Martin, get an update?
No, really, I can't. I know the same as you. We're still waiting for Gerry to come on.
Yeah. Well, I'm kind of surprised he wanted to continue with this today, considering all the problems that have been going on. We were supposed to have a guest on, Tracy Tormé, who canceled last week, was going to make an appearance this week, but with this power outage issue that Gerry had, I don't know if anything. Oh, okay. I think Gerry just joined us. Gerry, you there?
Yes, I am here. Internet finally started.
I expect an extra fat bonus for starting this process today.
The bonus would be there if it started at 10 o'clock when I didn't show up. I was like in such a panic. I'm like, I couldn't even make a phone call. I'm like, oh my God, please something work. So I'm here. I'm alive. Sorry, we're in the Midwest, out in the middle of bumfudge Egypt. And
I started the show off with 3 F-bombs. So
3 F-bombs. Okay, we're all right then.
Yeah, just to let everybody know that this was the right show.
Yeah. Now, to give everybody a heads up, the show is going to be here in the next couple of weeks, I guess. We're going to be moving. We'll still be here on YouTube, but we'll be going through the servers over at KGRA Digital Broadcasting. Don shocks me yesterday morning. Let's give you an idea what happened. There's only 2 people watching. Oh, Jesus Christ. I forgot I haven't promoted the show yet. Let me go do that too while I'm talking. So I get a message, a video call from Dawn yesterday. I need you to join me in a Skype meeting. I'm like, oh shit, what's going on? What's happening? And it's important. So I'm like, yeah, I'll meet you over there. So I head over and I join Skype and I see this guy, Bill needs to add me, and I've known this guy for like forever. And I'm like, okay. So I meet Bill. Bill adds me, and I'm in this Skype meeting for because Don is getting us a gig with this radio station, because that's the kind of guy Don is. So we are going to start broadcasting.
Well, God damn it, Gary, if you're going to tell a story, tell the story. Okay.
All right, here you go. You tell the story.
For years, Bill was my producer, Bill Skywatcher at KGRA, where I was running for years Dark Matters Radio, my radio show. Now, anybody that's familiar with me, and since I've been doing this show the last couple of months with you, Gary, and Gary and I have known each other since way back in the days when my wife Vicky and I were publishing UFO Magazine. Now, in all those years, I was doing my radio show in a number of different venues. And with KGRA, we were really getting out there. And a couple of years ago, I had an accident where I fractured my vertebrae, one of the vertebrae in my back. And boy, I'll tell you what, that you talk about something that's just tinge painful. That was a real buggerboo. And I ended up leaving KGRA because, well, I couldn't do the show. I was just too damned uncomfortable. But Bill, who has been one of my biggest, hugest supporters on KGRA, was just really sad to see me go. Now, he called me yesterday, and just to touch base, see how everything's going on. And I told him about coming in here as a guest on Morning Coffee with Gerry over here on YouTube. And to make a long story short, I was telling Bill about some of the things that we've been doing. Now, Bill and I have been just the closest friends forever. And I told him about an idea that Gerry had been talking about since I've known him. And that was to start another broadcast called Dangerous Nerds, which basically former military guys and gals that are into the nerd culture, you know, the things that are discussed on this show every damn week. For example, the House of the Dragon, the Terminator, some of my personal favorites, Supernatural and stuff like that. So anyway, Bill told me, because we had, when I was still on KGRA, we did have a retired colonel that I knew, Mike Brown, who basically had been running a show, but then he had some health issues, and he had to kind of bow out. Well, they brought another show onto the network handling veterans things. These guys, two guys, these guys were both Afghanistan vets. And something is going on, and they've gotten really busy, and they're talking about leaving. So Bill said, my God, that would be great. He said, boy, he said, I think we're going to have an opening for that. And I said, hang on, dude. So I started trying to get in touch with Gerry. Now, unless Gerry and I have already set something up to get in touch with, this guy is like trying to find a June bride in a whorehouse, okay? It just don't happen. But thank God I was able to reach him, and brought him on, and I introduced him, and take it from there, Gerry. I mean, Jesus, if you're going to tell a story, dude, tell the story.
I'm in the middle of
My wife
moving.
says, by the way, I'm a rat contour. Hey, I don't want to hear you whining. I don't want to hear that.
I'm in the middle of
show
moving
must go
when
on,
this
dude.
happens, and I'm still packing, and everything's in boxes around me right now, and I'm like, I'm actually in a panic over the phone call. I'm like, well, what's going on, you know? And by golly, I get on there, I meet Bill, and this conversation is going. It's like, holy shit, you know, you're wanting to do the show. Oh, okay. So, but as the conversation progresses, he starts talking. He's actually watched some of the footage. He likes the way I do the show. He likes the way we all banter. He got a kick out of it. And so it started going with, well, you know what? We could pick up your morning shows. And I gave the times, and the UFO show is in the middle of the week. And I've got co-hosts that do Tuesday and Friday, Keith and Chris. And Chris knocked it out of the park, by the way, on Tuesday. And then I told him about TGIF, and I told him about Saturday Morning Fun Time. And he's like, well, we'll just pick up the whole slot. We got to move some things around. There's going to be some guys leaving, so we'll give you now here, but that'll eventually probably turn into 2 hours. And I'm sitting there going, holy shit, we're going to be broadcasting the show from there through their service onto our channel, but also to all of their streaming points, which includes Venmo. And there's Tracy.
Hey,
Tracy's
guys.
here. Hi, Tracy.
How are you?
Doing very well. I was trying to explain to everybody because I finally got internet after the power went out.
Goodness.
Oh my God. Everybody, I got phone calls from you. I got Don calling me. I got phone calls from Mexico. I don't know who the fuck that was.
Is Don?
Yeah, who could that be?
Is Don
Hey,
joining?
Tracy, how's it
Don
going?
is here.
Hey, buddy. Is Don there?
Yeah, he's here.
Yeah,
Great.
right
Great,
here.
great. Yeah.
Oh, your
Good,
audio
we've
is
been-
coming in so clear today, Tracy. No breakup. That's nice.
That's good to hear. That's good to hear.
You are a giant white and gray nipple.
I'm a what?
You don't know how to do it. Don't worry about it. People will survive. Ladies and
Okay.
gentlemen, this is Tracy Tormé. It's good to see you. I hope you're feeling well today.
Thank you, sir. I'm doing very well. Thank you.
Fantastic. Well, the show had a little.
Tracy and
oh,
I,
sorry.
Tracy
Go ahead,
and
Don.
I, go back many, many years. I met Tracy right after, and Vicky, my wife Vicky, knew Tracy from the UFO research arena, and we all had the same friends. Tracy was very close friends with Bud Hopkins and a number of other people, and of course, we were very close to Bud. And at any rate, Tracy and I go back well over 30 years. And I'll never forget, actually, what was the name of that movie with Gerry, with Michael J. Fox? It was a Vietnam movie.
Casualties of War.
Casualties of War, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll never forget, after that movie came out, Tracy went to see it, and Tracy knew I was a Vietnam vet, and that movie was very dark. I haven't seen it in many years, but it involved the rape of a Vietnamese girl, and I don't remember if they murdered her or what. But
Well,
at any rate,
I can tell you on personal levels, because Dale was in the movie and he was the military advisor on the film, and he had problems with what's his name, the director, De Palma.
Brian De Palma.
Because basically this is an echo of the same thing that took place in Platoon, which he had problems with.
Right.
He says, my problem is I am here to make sure that Vietnam veterans, soldiers are represented. So if you're going to show a dark part of this, make sure you show the honor and the heroism that these guys showed too. And but De Palma's a piece of shit. I don't like De Palma.
Well, at any rate,
I thank God every day that he stopped George Lucas from putting Star Wars out the way he did. He stopped it. He's the one who came up with the scroll. He came up with so many things that they ended up integrating into Star Wars, the first Star Wars film. But De Palma is very anti-America. He's a communist. And I have a beef with him over that. But still,
at any rate,
there's some good moments
to get
in
back
that film.
to my story.
Yep.
Yeah, to get back to my story.
I want to hear
Tracy
the story
called
too
me
because I don't really remember it.
Yeah, Tracy called me, and he said basically, I just went to see Casualties of War, and Don, I know you're a Vietnam vet. Did that kind of stuff really happen? And I said, well, as a rule, absolutely not. Were there incidents where things like that, in fact, did happen? Unfortunately, yes. But as soon as it came to light, the authorities would go after those people and prosecute them to the fullest extent of the law. But if you're asking if this kind of thing happened routinely, no, absolutely no.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, that was one of the actually when Tracy and I first met. So that was one of the first conversations we had. Now, over the years, and I'm going to make them available to you, Gerry, we were, I would bring Tracy on my show, Dark Matters Radio, and we ran it for some time, a series that would go on every week, maybe every 2 weeks, called Tracy Tormé's Mad Hollywood Minute. And boy, we really hit some topics, didn't we, Tracy?
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. I mean, it was dredging up a lot of memories for me, things that I've experienced in the past. But I always respected Don so much for his military background and his police background. I know he'd gone through a lot.
Wait a minute, you served in the military or were a cop?
You didn't know that? No, yeah, of course you did. Yeah. But it's interesting, guys, because Gerry and Keith, we haven't really talked about politics, so I'm always wary of where.
Yeah, I don't go into politics. Calling somebody a commie is not politics for me.
Right.
But yeah, because I avoid politics myself, Tracy. So don't worry, we won't drag you into that.
No. I don't mind at all because, my feeling these days, every day when I wake up, is after all these years of fighting the Soviets and fighting the Nazis and fighting all the people, the Confederacy, all the people that the U.S. has fought over the years. Now it's a bunch of spoiled, entitled brats that are destroying the country from inside. And it's just a nonstop effort to tear everything down. And I'm thoroughly disgusted by it because I grew up in a totally democratic family. My dad sang for JFK. He was really good friends with Tom Bradley, the mayor of LA. And my aunt was a longtime Democratic state senator in Nevada, very close to Harry Reid. And so that's the way that I was raised. And I also grew up in Beverly Hills, which is an extremely liberal place. So I've always been just naturally, that's been the side that I've been on.
Well, I was
now,
Irish Catholic, and my entire family were Democrats.
mhm,
But something happened in the 80s that the party kind of shifted too far for us.
mhm,
I'm a Hubert Humphrey Democrat,
mhm,
or as I joke today, I'm a Hubert Humphrey conservative,
mhm. Yeah, yeah.
because those of us that followed that kind of political ideology of support, of patriotic, serve the military,
Mhm.
support your country, always care for the poor. That's the kind of Democrats we were. But now it's something completely different.
Yeah,
So
well, I
we
think
got left behind.
we're headed for a, I'm sorry to say, but I felt this way for quite a while. I think we're headed for a second civil war because I
It
don't
acts
see,
like it.
yeah, I don't see any way these two sides can really bridge the gap anymore. Um, and, anyone that saw the conventions during the last presidential election, I was stunned because I was watching the Republican convention. I've never been a Republican ever, but they were all really positive and upbeat and everything. Then I was watching the Democrat convention. I was thinking, God, these people friggin' hate the country. Not even that they don't like it, they hate it. They despise it. So I think we're at a real turning point, a dangerous turning point right now. But anyway, I've been on my soapbox long enough. But it just every day I see something new that blows my mind and gets me really angry. To be really honest with you, but I really respect you guys that served in the military, and I guess it's a whole brave new world we're living in now. So I guess we'll see where it goes.
No,
You know.
it's it. Look, here's what I think. It's we're seeing a revolutionary
Mm-hmm.
movement in this country, and there are groups within the country that are trying to make that out to be illegal. That somehow wanting to put the country back on a proper path. There are some people within that group that I think misbehave, but as a whole, the majority of the people that want to put the country back on track are not crazies, and there are crazies on the left, and they're definitely crazies on the left, and there's crazies on the right.
Mm-hmm.
And what we've got is guys like Keith, my partner. I don't know if he's going to show. He's not here right now, and he works on. Oh, sorry, he's with his mother. I just got a message from him. She's getting treatment today. So everybody, if you believe, send prayers for him. If you're like me, send your positive vibes out, man. Keith's mom's getting her treatment today. So, but I do know that I had a concern that we were going to go to a civil war. I was afraid that it was going to erupt into that. But it ended up not. And here's what I think is happening is people are waking up on the Liberal Party and on the, obviously on the conservative side. But you find guys like Keith that are like pretty much almost aligned with me in almost every way except for he hates Trump. And which I'm fine with. If people don't like him, I get it. I don't like him on a personal level, never have. I hated that guy in 1986. I watched him in an interview, and I'm like, what a loudmouth New Yorker. Fuck that guy. And but at the same time, I'm like, he's talking sense, whether you like him or not. He's
okay. Well, let me paraphrase. Let me paraphrase something from Commander Spock from the original Star Trek. Okay, let us look at this from a logical standpoint. Now, I voted for Donald Trump in 2016. There's nothing in this universe that could have caused me to cast a vote for a woman that turned her back on American veterans serving this country overseas in Benghazi when they were being attacked by masses of Islamic jihadist fighters aiming to kill them, to wipe out an American facility there that actually was being run by the Central Intelligence Agency. I won't go into why they were there because that is a reason of contention. But Nevertheless, these Americans were there defending this facility, defending their own lives, screaming for help. And Hillary Clinton, who was the 2016 Democratic nominee, and Barack Obama, who at the time, and we're talking about 2012 now, okay, at the time was the president of the United States, totally turned their back on these Americans in peril. And some of them, as a result of this, died. Benghazi. Benghazi was at the front of my mind for years. It's still today, Gerry, Tracy, at the front of my mind. Okay? Now, Donald Trump, would I go out and have a beer with him? I doubt it. Okay?
Yeah.
Because on a personal level, I find the man obnoxious. But
Oh, yes.
obnoxious he may be. But let's take a look at what was happening in America during the 4 goddamn years he was in the White House. Okay? We had a surplus of oil. Gasoline prices were down around $2 and $3, which out here in California was a godsend. You know what gasoline is out here now?
It's about $10.
Up around $7 a gallon.
I saw it went as high
gallon.
as $10 in some places.
You know what a pound of goddamn bacon goes for now? Over $10 a pound.
Jesus
freaking dollars a pound. Okay. Now, just looking at food prices, the cost of energy. My God, we were close to paying almost $200 a month for electricity when it was running, because half the time we were in black and brownouts.
Yeah,
All right,
the rolling
here.
brownouts.
Now,
Yeah.
until we got solar panels, which is helping dramatically with our energy bills. But California has been a freaking cesspool because of Democratic policies for years. Now, am I a Republican? No. What am I? I'm a goddamn conservative, and I'm proud of it.
Conservative
Now,
independent.
right here, you see this? You see this?
Oh, hold on. Let me
This
make
is
you
a
large.
political brochure.
Let me open it up. Show it again. Show it again, Don.
This is the Democratic nominee running for state assembly, Pilar Chicago. I can't pronounce her last name. Schiavo. Okay, who wants to totally defund the police, get rid of the police. This is on her goddamn. This is our policy position. She wants to. The Democrats are emptying the prisons. Violent criminals are once again roaming the streets. She wants to get rid of the cops, okay? She wants to disarm the citizenry. She doesn't want anybody to be able to own a firearm, okay? Get rid of the cops, get rid of so who's going to have a goddamn firearm? The criminals. And how's she going to fight them? What's her plan to fight these criminals? Well, they want to bring in health workers and other people that can go out and talk to these people. And
hi, this is Billy. I work for the city. I'm a counselor. I'm on scene. Can you send me some backup of some more counselors?
Yeah,
I'll see that one. That'll work. Yeah, look, there's insanity out there. I got to tell you.
One
And once again,
second.
Tracy, normally we don't go political, but apparently I triggered my buddy Don.
You guys,
Don-
you know, when we did the movie that was finally called The Phenomenon that came out recently, I had an old friend named.
Oh yes, you haven't even seen that one yet. Is he? That was one you worked on.
Yeah, it was originally my film, but I had a big
Tracy.
falling out. Yeah,
Tracy has done a number on those Hollywood Minutes, and I'll send them to you, where we were talking about what originally the working title was 701, which ended up being The Phenomenon. So
Because
yeah,
I'm a big fan of George Knapp, and I saw that he was in that, and I'm like, I put that on my list of things I got to watch. But you were originally the one in charge of that.
No, I was originally the one that started it.
Okay.
Long
that
story.
was Tracy's project. That was his film.
It still says a film by Tracy Tormé and James Fox, which is, true technically. But anyway, I won't get into all that. But what I was going to tell you was there's a married couple named Harry and Linda Bloodworth Thomas. They've been TV producers for many, many years. And when we were doing the phenomenon, we wanted to get Bill Clinton to appear in the film. So I called Harry up. He owed me a favor. I know he's really close to them because he's from Arkansas. And I said, can you get Bill to be in the film? So we went back and forth for a long time, and he would call me and say, yeah, Bill's really interested. He's just afraid of, how it might affect his reputation given the subject matter of the film. But don't worry, I'm going to keep working on him and it'll work out. So this went on for several weeks. And finally, Harry called me one day and said, well, Bill's been advised not to do it, but I can get you Hillary. And it took me at least a half a second to say no fucking way. Because my wife and I, our name for her is the Antichrist. So I was just not going to have her be in my film. But anyway, I think Donald Trump, if nothing else, he should be given a medal for defeating her. Can't even imagine what the country would have been like then if she'd won.
Yeah, it's
you got a clue right now with Joe Biden.
Yeah,
well, Joe Biden is a president not in his mind. He's not there, and it's clear because I worked in the medical field for years, and I started spotting that shit a while back. That he was having moments that were clearly some form of dementia, and it's gotten worse and worse and worse, and it's horrifying that he's in charge. But I know he's not really in charge. There are other people that are pulling the strings right now. That scares me too, because when you don't know who's in charge, you can't see them, you start to feel out of control. And that scares people.
Well, I'll tell you what scares me, Gary. You know what scares me? How this administration had politicized the Department of Justice, the FBI, going after, for God's sake, parents who are going to school board meetings complaining about sexually explicit books being made available to the children, talking about gender reassignment surgery, talking about you may not be a boy, you
I can't even
may be a girl,
begin.
versa. And the FBI is raiding their goddamn homes. Now you tell me what
It's the
kind of
weaponization of the DOJ. It absolutely is. Look, children are children. They want to be astronauts and stuff like that. They can't decide. Consent has always been known that a child can't give consent until legally allowed to, which is 18 in most states. Okay. If you are prepubescent and this is happening to you, it is a form of abuse. It's abuse. It's medical abuse. And the medical field, I mean, I'm ashamed. I worked in that field for a long time. And to see doctors rallying to do this, and it's really about money. It has nothing to do with some sort of moral stand with them. It's about money, that they are abusing. They're sworn Hippocratic oath to do no harm, and they're doing harm. They're physically and emotionally scarring these children. And there is going to be a major blowback on this that is going to send some people fucking running to other countries when it's done. But Tracy, we derailed.
Yes.
I said one political thing and I triggered the shit out of Don, man. I know Don. I love him. And we went that direction, but I want to go back to that movie. And, because really my problem with the film is and with him in general, because De Palma went about doing another film in the 2000s focusing on, again, the same thing, where a bunch of American Marines raped and murdered a girl and her family. And it did happen. And this is what I explain to people. I just want to explain that the military is a microcosm of the entire country. What happens in the country happens in the military because we're the same people. It's just now we're in a smaller group. Marines, Army, what have you. There's always going to be a percentage of fucking low-life scumbags. Always. You're always going to have, just like in real life, there's always a number of low-lifes that you deal with. You get them in the military. We run into them. I know Don's run into them. Our nickname for some of them is Blue Falcons. But the preferred name is Buddy Fucker. These are guys that are out for themselves, that are self-centered, self-absorbed. They are terrible soldiers. They're usually terrible at their jobs. They're the biggest whiners in the company. And the only way in the military, because once you sign that thing and take that little oath, I state your name, do hereby solemnly swear to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And and I did hear a few people go, state your name, and did not say their names. I was not one of those because I proudly took that oath. And so those guys don't like those shithills. And that's the problem I have with Brian De Palma's depiction sometimes, is he makes it look like everybody's like, well, we need to circle the wagons around this guy and protect him. That's not what freaking happens. Those guys, good soldiers don't like those guys.
I worked with Brian De Palma's wife for quite a long time, and you're not far off, man. It's the same thing for James Cameron. I mean, he's beyond
liberal. He's not a liberal. He's a leftist.
America hater.
Yeah. And you've got another one.
Yeah.
I have to be careful when I talk about him because I work for Dale, is Oliver Stone. Dale knows how I feel about Oliver Stone. I don't like him. I actively dislike him. And I think if there's anybody that I will refuse to do work for Dale on, would be Oliver Stone, unless it was something that I felt was patriotic enough that I could get over myself. But I just don't like people who hate this country, Tracy. I don't like it. This country, I just got into a group the other day, and I just saw, it was on Midnight's Edge's group, and they were just talking shit. It was a Batman group, and they were talking shit about this country and how, we always involve, the military is there to.
Neither do I.
They think that the military and the conservative part of the government is collectivism. And I said, you know what? If you go back and you look on paper, we have never gotten anything for freeing Iraq of Saddam Hussein. We never got anything. Private companies did, but the U.S. country, the country itself, we never profited off the oil, not off the first Gulf War, not off the second Gulf War. We sure as hell didn't profit off of anything as a country from what happened in Afghanistan. So I just walked away because I'm like, look, when people are that stupid, you can't educate them. And I've made an oath of my life to stop talking to stupid and crazy people. And all of you in the chat, some of you I've seen some of you get into flame wars on Twitter and on Facebook. And I'm telling you, man, you're wasting your time trying to talk sense to somebody who doesn't fucking
Gerry,
understand.
can you still see me?
No, I can hear you. I can hear you just fine, Tracy. But I got to tell you, in this country, you've got a bunch of people that have lost their fucking minds. But I'm grateful that many of my Democrat friends, Keith included, are not crazy. And they see the problem. And they see the problem with the Democratic Party, what's going on. They won't leave the Democratic Party, mind you, and I don't want them to. They need to clean house. It's like my problem with the Republican Party. I have a problem with them. It's called the religious right. As conservative, I don't agree with the religious right at all, except for when
I got a problem with all of them simply because of money. All right.
Yeah,
people
money is so important.
In, buying their positions, Tulsi Gabbard just the other day made an announcement. She is leaving the Democratic Party. Were you aware of that?
Yes.
Gerry, were you aware?
Oh, I thought you were talking to Tracy. Yes, I am.
Well, I was talking to everybody.
Oh,
Tulsi
yeah, I
Gabbard.
was. Yeah, Tulsi.
Yeah.
That's what you're seeing more than would be believed. And of course, the media, the mainstream media, which is bought and paid for by the Democratic National Party,
Yeah, they're
not
part of the
reporting
Democratic
that kind
Party.
of
I know.
stuff.
Yeah. Even Fox has went what I would refer to as moderate. They went middle of the road, and the reason why is because I would say over 50% of their staff is more liberal than conservative, and I think that was healthy for them to do that because it's a better way of representing the nation. So I still call Fox News one of the better news networks. But
you know who I blame for that, Gerry? Do you know who I blame? I came back from Vietnam after I was wounded, and I finally got out of the Army. I was in the hospital for almost 6 months. Came home, was able to vote in my first election that November of 72. And Nixon was squaring off with, I'm trying to remember the Democratic nominee's name now. It's escaping me. Who?
Muskie? Was it Muskie?
No. The guy was a World War II B-24 pilot, but he was, what the hell? Somebody can look it up. And what did Nixon do? Nixon was always trying to curry favor with people. I voted for Nixon in 72, but he was always trying to make people like him. And one of the things he did to make people like him was cancel the military draft and turn it into an all-volunteer military, which is what we have today. And that, in my opinion, has desperately hurt this country because nobody anymore has skin in the game. They don't have skin in the game. At least when there was a draft, okay, everybody had, if you were physically able and mentally able, had a possibility of having to serve 2 years. And I think we are a poorer country as a result of that.
No, I agree with you because some of the European countries that we look up to still practice that you do a year to 2 years of service to your country, whether it's in the military or working with other groups that help the country. And I think that's a good idea. I think that right out of high school, before you get to go to college, you have to do a year to 2 years of something. It doesn't necessarily have to be military. Because I got to tell you, one thing that came from that, and there's a book called Generation Kill that became a miniseries that pointed out something that I was unaware of until I read that book, Generation Kill, which is that a large portion of soldiers would not shoot directly at another human being. These were in the draft era. They would not shoot. And each war was a different percentage, but it was always close to the mark, the same percentage. I don't recall the number right now. But when they got to the volunteer military, we saw a distinct change psychologically. And I think it was also the fact that in the military, we don't refer to them as the enemy. We refer to them as tangos. We dehumanize them as soldiers. We dehumanize the enemy by calling them bad guys and tangos. That's what we refer to them as. Sometimes you'll hear guys that get more personal and say Haji, depending on where they're at. If they're in the Middle East, that's meaning the bad guys, tangos. But the whole point was to psychologically remove that thing. And it's sort of like playing in a video game, combat video games. And so it got labeled Generation Kill because we had a kill ratio per soldier that was in combat of up in the 90s percentile. And we'd never seen that before. And it's the only benefit that I feel comes from an all-volunteer army. The bad thing about it is nobody fucking wants to join during a war. They like peacetime military so they can get their GI Bill and go to college. I watched it personally. I witnessed guys that chicken shitted out and were looking for different MOSs at graduation because of the Gulf War break. You know, it was building up, and I knew I was going to be going, and I didn't care. I'm almost 30 years old when I joined the Army. I was older than all those fuckers. I said, fuck you guys. I don't care if I die. I'm good with it. You know, but you know,
well,
the numbers speak for itself in a backdoor draft. This is the problem I have.
Something today that is draining and deleting our military.
That's
seeing
the backdoor
this
draft.
Administration. No, negative.
I think the backdoor draft is bad.
You're seeing this administration turning the armed forces into another grand social experiment.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. Okay? That too.
The bottom line is the military is there for two reasons. I was there. I experienced it. When your nation sends you to war, you're to do two things. You are to kill the enemy, not neutralize him, not terminate. You kill him. The other thing, you break his shit. Okay? And you kill and you break shit until the other guy decides it's time to quit. That's how you win wars. And we've forgotten how to win wars. We have not won a war since World War II. Okay? We haven't. We didn't win in Korea. We didn't win in Vietnam. Well, we may have kind of won with Desert Storm, but then shit went back to the way it was. And since then, we didn't win in Iraq, and we didn't know. As a matter of fact, Barry Obama, just said, fuck Iraq, left willy-nilly, and look at what happened. And Afghanistan, what happened? Well, Joe Biden tucked his goddamn tail between his legs and left billions of dollars of arms, equipment, and everything else there, and abandoned Americans there.
Yep.
Okay? He abandoned Americans
Americans and people. It's almost a repeat of Vietnam. And I'm going to tell you, we actually technically won Vietnam.
I'm sorry for being so angry, but you know, this
okay,
kind
Don.
of stuff, it
Just
really,
the history
really
lesson.
gets under my skin.
Vietnam, we won. We actually forced the enemy to a peace treaty in Paris. And,
until the Democratic Congress sold it out, Gary.
That's
so
what
we
they
didn't
did.
win. We fucking lost.
Hold on. We didn't lose. We surrendered. Our Congress surrendered and defunded the military because they needed the military to back up the treaty. And once we weren't there to defend that treaty and make sure that they obeyed the rules of the treaty, the people who had helped us were slaughtered. Over 2 million people were murdered after we pulled out of Vietnam. And we pulled out of Vietnam because we were defunded by Congress, and we had actually won the war until we just surrendered and lost the war. That's Vietnam. And it's pretty embarrassing how Vietnam ended. And to see other things in gosh, oh golly. I could go for hours into history lessons of what happened in Vietnam. Not one firefight was lost by the United States. We had one retreat from a fire base because they were overrun and weren't prepared. They immediately went back, got more supplies, went back up.
My base got overrun, and I'll guarantee goddamn to you, we retreated out of there.
Yeah,
right before I got
retreating
wounded.
isn't lost. Retreating is pulling back to another firing line. We did it all the time in World War I. A lot of people don't know that the trench warfare, there were multiple trenches going every direction. And we were always either moving forward or being pushed back to another trench. And the Germans would take over a trench we had. And it would be the same way. We would take a trench that they had. That's how battles are fought on the ground, with boots on the ground. There's often a retreat. It's a strategic retreat. It's not retreat out of fear. It's a retreat out of, we don't have what we need here. Let's back up, resupply, and go back. And then they take their fire bases back. And that's the thing I always got irritated with is retreat doesn't mean loss, you dumb motherfuckers. You know, retreat means going to get what you need and then come back. And we would always come back until we got defunded by Congress. And then you saw the scene on top of that building of the embassy, the people screaming and reaching for that helicopter. No one's ever going to forget that. I remember it. It's etched into my brain as a child. And my brother was over there. He was a Marine at that time when that shit went down. But anyway, you know what we haven't talked about, and Penny pointed it out? Aliens. We haven't really talked about aliens. We got a lot of passion out. Wouldn't you say that, Tracy? Don and I are passionate. You there, Tracy? Yeah, you're there. Okay, so where were we going to go today with UFOs, Don?
Well, Tracy has had a rich history in UFOs. Back when we first met, he was very involved in what was happening in Gulf Breeze, Florida. As a matter of fact, back in October, right now, as a matter of fact, this time of year, in 1988, there was a 2-hour special. I believe it ran on Fox, called UFO Cover Up Live, which was narrated by Mike Farrell, who you may remember from the television series MASH.
Yeah,
and it was a live broadcast at the time, and it was let me see, how do I put this politely? It was scripted, and Tracy has some very in-depth knowledge about that broadcast. Tracy, why don't you give us a little rundown on UFO Cover Up Live?
Tracy? Oh, shit. He was having some digital breakup. I'm afraid we may have lost him. Tracy? All those rolling brownouts in California, I think there's a problem with the internet out there, too.
Yeah, it could very well be.
Because he was talking a minute ago, right when you started talking, and he was breaking up.
Yeah.
So let you go ahead and elucidate. Yep, we lost Tracy. Go ahead and elucidate the audience, Don.
Stand by a minute.
I'll address you, though, Glenn. You are absolutely correct. There's Tracy. There you go. Tracy, he was wanting you to talk about that. What was it called again?
UFO Cover Up Live. Tracy was involved with that. Tracy knew the producer. He knows a very funny backstory about that. If you saw that broadcast, you'll remember that there were 2 alleged government agents in electronic blackout with their voices electronically altered. And Tracy, do you want to talk about that? How that whole thing came together?
Well, I was pretty close with Bill Moore at the time, and he was hobnobbing with these guys who came to be known as the Aviary, Falcon, Condor, all these other
were code names,
sort of pseudo government pseudo UFO guys. Yeah, and it's funny because that show that I worked on, UFO Cover Up Live, years ago, I thought it was a totally forgotten thing, and just recently there's a documentary film about that people that have contacted me, there's suddenly here, honey.
You're there, but go. You're on the show. Go onto the patio.
Guys, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, I hear you.
Okay. So, what was the question, Don?
Well, you knew the producer, and he had flown back east from California to a secret meeting, and when he came back, he was so damn terrified and frightened.
Yeah.
Went
Okay.
totally paranoid. Okay, that
Right.
business.
Yeah. Okay. Now I know what you were referring to. Yeah, the producer of UFO Cover Up Live was a guy named Michael Seligman, and he had been best known for being sort of the second banana every year on the Academy Awards shows. That was his really only thing. He somehow got involved with UFO Cover Up Live. And when I brought Bill Moore in to meet with them, and he then turned it up, taking Seligman out on a powerboat out to the middle of one of the Great Lakes as a way to be in a private place. And when Seligman came back from that meeting, he was so freaked out and paranoid by everything he had just heard.
Well, Seligman ended up
Guy
scripting.
was just walking around, looking behind his back.
Well, what I thought, Tracy, what I thought really ruined that 2-hour broadcast. He had scripted everybody's talking. They were reading from cue cards or whatever. There was no spontaneity to it. It came across as so totally fake, don't you think?
Yeah, he's losing the internet again.
Yeah.
So what's the basic gist here? Is that the show was bullshit then? Is that what I'm getting?
Yes and no. You got to remember that there was a hell of a lot of disinformation being perpetrated then.
True. He insisted that everyone read cue cards for their interviews, and
using cue cards for interviews?
Yeah. That's what I'm saying.
Fuck?
It was
no, not again.
Seligman, the producer, was convinced he was being targeted by the intelligence agencies. Tracy told me that he would go to his office window, look out to see if there was anybody parked out in the parking lot, keeping an eye on his office, keeping an eye on his window. They had this guy climbing the walls. So when they did the show, he wanted to make sure that he controlled every aspect of it. He didn't want to take a chance on pissing anybody off. As a matter of fact, now this was even before the fall of the Soviet Union, okay? October 88. This was before the Iron Curtain collapsed. They even had a live television stream coming from the USSR talking about their UFO phenomena that was happening over there.
Right.
So there was a hell of a lot going on. But the guys that were Falcon and Condor, okay, one of them was an Air Force officer by the name of Robert Collins. who incidentally I had kind of a clash with a number of years ago. He was really going off the rails in a lot of different ways. And I forget who the other one was, Tracy. It wasn't Bill Moore, was it? No.
Oh, it was Richard Doty. Richard
Doty,
Doty,
that's
wasn't he?
right. Yeah, Richard Doty.
I know
Now,
that
Doty,
name. How do I know that name?
that's the guy who had been an AFOSI agent, okay, Air Force Office of Special Investigations, who basically did a number on Linda Moulton Howe, who was trying to get an HBO documentary, okay. Doty contacted her at the behest of his superiors, I guess. They had promised Linda Howe access to official Air Force films and documents that she planned to use on her documentary. And at the very last minute, pulled everything from her, which caused her program that she was trying to put together to collapse. And he was also the guy, Doty, that basically was instrumental in disinforming civilian scientist Paul Benowitz. An entire OSI program was mounted against this civilian scientist. This is a hell of a long story, but the short end run around what happened was they drove Benowitz at the behest of Bill Moore and Richard Doty into a mental hospital, a literal mental hospital.
It's true. That's true.
That's crazy, man.
Yeah. Well, if either of you guys are interested in this subject, there's a very good documentary that hasn't been widely seen called Mirage Men. Have you guys ever seen it?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes.
And it gets into all of this stuff. And, it was the level of disinformation that was put out was pretty, mind-boggling. And that's sort of at the center of all of this. But, yeah, Seligman really lost it when these guys met with him. Whatever they told him totally freaked him out. And he became so paranoid and obsessive about MJ-12, right? That a couple of the producers, we used to put cards at the front of our desks, MJ7, MJ5, MJ3, to just so when he would walk by and he would see it, it would freak him out. Because it just got to a ridiculous level.
Do you know what MJ-12 was, Gary? So, allegedly,
the Majestic 12. That was a committee put together by Truman, wasn't it?
Right.
Yeah, and their job was to control the information, to put a chokehold on information of what would be released to the public and what wouldn't be. But in the end, it was like 99% nothing gets released, and what does get released will be released in such a way that plausible deniability must exist, to where you create doubt over the reality of the situation. And so they have put a chokehold on it for so long. Now, I don't think Majestic 12 exists anymore, but I do believe that somebody still holds a seat doing what Majestic 12 started.
Well, you know what I think? I think the whole thing
CIA
has been taken from the government, and it's now in private avionic industry. Those are the
Bigelow. Bigelow is somebody that I suspect it right at the heart of that.
No, I'm talking about the aviation industry, Lockheed, etc. I think they have SAP programs. They have special access programs that are, as a matter of fact, illegal to even admit they exist, which is a violation of security. Okay. And that if we do have any recovered suspected extraterrestrial material, those are the guys that have it. they don't have to answer to FOIA requests and what have you. Okay, they can tell everybody to go pound sand. And I did a report several years ago on something called the Davis-Wilson incident, the Davis-Wilson document, that we'll have to talk about on another show, Gerry. But it involves very deeply this avionics synopsis, okay, where they in fact probably have the secret ET material. And by the way, Wilson was a former, he's now retired, admiral that headed up the DIA. Okay, so we're talking about some high level stuff here.
Yeah, and by the way, Matt, if you're still out there, I sent you another message to join us because I want to introduce you to Dawn. But I want to go back to something because all the way back when you were still, I think you were still employed with Star Trek Next Generation. We got that little mini series with Krina called Intruders. And how much into the investigation of that case did you go before working on the show?
Well, it all came from my personal relationship with Bud Hopkins and David Jacobs and John Mack.
I cannot say how much Bud Hopkins is the one that got me into this more seriously in the 80s. Reading, well, I told you this one before, is Missing Time, which you wanted to make a movie out of.
Right.
That's what led to Fire in the Sky.
Sure. Right. That's exactly right. Yes. That was the abduction phenomena for several years. We had a group in LA that used to meet, bi-weekly basically to discuss this. And I got to know a lot of the real abductees. It was a real interesting time. It became a bit overwhelming after a while because it just seemed like there was this, nefarious thing going on, using the human race as sort of a guinea pig. So a lot of those experiences that I had in real life, I put into Intruders. And that we talked about Richard Crenna. I mean, that was basically the character that was based on a hybridization of Bud and Mac. I'm glad you liked it because it's sort of been lost these days. I don't think a lot of people know that much about Intruders anymore. But
I would like to see it remade, to be honest with you, into a feature-length film, full 2.5 hours. I think I could sit through 2.5 hours of that story because I was fascinated by that farm and what happened there. And of course, I read the book, but it wasn't called Intruders. It was called. What was the title of the book? I forgot the title of the book.
Which book?
The book the movie is based on, the miniseries.
Oh, well, the miniseries was really not based on a book because the title Intruders was, named loosely after a book that Bud Hopkins wrote, but the actual story in Intruders is fictional. I just made it up, mostly from whole cloth. But it was based on the things I had witnessed during these abduction sessions. It's interesting because when I got to know Lou Elizondo really well, I started to talk about abductions one day, and then I kind of stopped myself because I thought, this stuff seems so science fiction-y and weird and Twilight Zone that it's probably, not a good thing to really get into unless someone has researched it or really understands it. I know from my own personal life that when I talk about abductions with anyone, I can see, on their faces, they're kind of wondering if I've kind of half lost my
You see
mind.
the skepticism pop up. Yeah, I get
yes.
Yeah.
So it's a tricky subject, but in my opinion, I came away from it believing that it was real. Although a lot of people have been influenced over the years by these stories. And I think there's a lot more people that come forward now that think they've had an experience where it's really from suggestion or something they read years ago.
Yeah.
But
Now, see, I had thought, and when you brought this up, it kind of blew me away.
Mhm.
I thought Intruders was based on Bud's book, Intruders, the incident at that something woods.
Copley Woods.
Copley
Copley.
Woods. Yeah.
Woods.
So I didn't know that you made up some of that shit, you motherfucker.
Gary, here's the thing, real quickly. When
Yeah.
I was brought in to rewrite the miniseries,
Right.
the working title was "They Are Among Us," and I thought that.
Yeah,
was
you told me that previously. That was
Yeah.
the working title.
Yeah, I thought it was a little melodramatic and sounded like bad
It is.
science
Intruders
fiction.
is more straightforward.
So I went to them and I said, "Look, we're working with Bud Hopkins. He's got a great title for one of his books. Why don't we just use that?" So we ended up using Intruders, which, confused some people because they think like you did.
Home invasion.
Home invasion. But also that it was based on Bud's book.
Bud's book,
But
because
it's
I
really
incorrectly thought that. Yeah.
It's not. But things really took off for Bud when he started doing his own regressive hypnosis, because originally he was using a psychiatrist named Aphrodite Clamar, and she was doing all the hypnosis.
Her name
for
was
him.
really Aphrodite?
Yeah, it sure was.
What a name.
Yeah. And he just decided after a while, Bud did, that it'd make life a lot easier if I knew how to do this myself. So he started doing his own hypnosis. And it was during that entire period that I was living in New York for part of the time. And I used to go to Greenwich Village and sit in on his hypnosis sessions, his regression sessions. So I witnessed, it must have been 30 different abductees that were put through their paces to remember something that had happened in their past that they only had vague memories of. And then, anyone out there that knows how hypnosis works, when the hypnosis kicks in, it literally takes their mind back to the day, to the hour where something happened to them. They might be 5 years old when it happened, but they can remember it like a photograph. And so a lot of these people had their, hidden memories unravel by the hypnosis process. And it was fascinating. It really was. Scary, too, in a lot of ways.
Yeah. We are reaching the end of the show, and I wish we had done this longer. I got to have you back again, Tracy.
Sure.
It's so fascinating having you and Dawn on here at the same time. I'm just like, I'm almost beyond overly stimulated right now with the both of you here.
We're going to send you a sedative, Gary.
Yeah. Now I'm going to tell you, Tracy, something happened this week, and I didn't get to finish talking about it because you jumped on. I want to talk about it real quick. We are officially picked up by KGRA Radio. We are not going to join them immediately because I got to get all my ducks in a row before we do it. It'll be within the next probably 2 weeks. The primary things they were interested in initially was the military show we want to do, which is why I need to talk to Mad Mardigan, who's in the chat right now. He's one of the people I want to do the show with, but also the UFO Wednesday, which will get. Oh, there's Mad right now. Hi, Mad. And Mad is one of my favorite military veteran buddies that I do shows with occasionally. and very snarky motherfucker. And but the radio station, it was really amazing what ended up happening, because at first it was just talking about the military thing, and then it was like, we want to do all your shows. We're going to work towards getting all your shows in the morning, Friday and Saturday, but we also really want this military show. So Don and I are going to have to sit down and really work this out. And I'd like Mad to be there for that, because Mad's the first person I approached about doing the show with. And but we're now going to be on KGRA digital broadcasting. You'll still be able to watch the show here on YouTube, on our channel here. They will broadcast to this channel, but we'll be broadcasting pretty much everywhere. Huge, a much bigger audience. And for some reason, I don't fucking know why, Bill likes me. And he went to the owner of the station.
I warned him about you.
Yeah, you warned him. And I was terrified, because the rule is no fucks given. That means you don't say fuck. And I'm like, I don't know if I can talk like that. I don't, because Don's been fucking hectoring me over this fucking word. He's like watching every show 6 times, 7 times, writing it down every time I say it. I'm like, what am I going to do? And finally, I get a message last night from Bill, the producer. He says, I spoke to the owner of the company. He says you can use any language you want. He says Gerry can do whatever he wants.
Yeah, that's great.
He likes the idea of what we're doing. And I just felt like I have carte blanche to be an asshole. Yay!
Well, not exactly.
Not exactly. I know. But I was relieved. And the fact is, Don and I talked about it, that I really need to work on not saying it so much, because we're going to have people that want to, sponsor the radio show. So, but we will be with KGRA. And let me share it real quick again. Share screen. Chrome tab, KGRA. Here it is. This is who we're going to be with. We're going to be taking some interesting slots at the beginning, because some people aren't available for their shows anymore, and more people are going to be moving on. This is a UFO-centric radio network, but I think they will be very acceptive of the military stuff we talk about and the nerd stuff that we talk about, because we love talking about movies, TV shows, and comic books. So it will be fun being part of KGRA, and we're looking forward to it. And Tracy, I definitely want to have you on. I'd like to have you as a regular, because you and Don know so much about that world that I've always wanted to be in, but never got to be in. I tried to be part of MUFON here in Missouri, and this is back in the 90s. And the guy that was running it, one of the guys, was a complete douche nozzle to me. He spoke very disrespectfully to me, and I went, well, you can fuck off. And I just walked away, and I wanted to be part of MUFON. I really thought it would be kind of cool to go out on some of the investigations and stuff like that.
Did I ever tell you my MUFON story?
You kind of did, yes. But before we end, let's end on 2 things. I want to end on, Tracy, I want you to talk about your best experience investigating something, as well as what just happened to you. And then I want to come back to Don and his MUFON story, and then we can get out of here.
Okay. Well, Gerry, and Don knows this, we've discussed it before. I came to the point where I really didn't think I was ever going to really see a UFO myself, because I've, sort of scanned the sky, my whole life and never saw anything. Was fooled once heavily outside of Las Vegas in the desert, but I eventually became convinced that what I saw was the planet Venus. It wasn't a UFO. So anyway, now that we moved down here to Escondido, which to your audience, it's in California, north of San Diego.
How far are you from the Valley, San Fernando?
A few hours.
Okay, so you're that far away from Don. Okay.
Yeah. But I knew down here that I'd heard from locals down here that they were having a lot of sightings. There's a pilot for United Airlines who flew for 33 years for them, and he lives 2 houses away from us, and we've become good friends. And he had heard these stories too. Anyway, to make a long story short, we had unbelievable, for me, I still kind of can't believe it, 2 straight nights of amazing sightings right off our balcony in the place where we live. We live on top of a mountain, and we have 5 acres. So it's very peaceful and it's very quiet. And 2.
Oh, we're losing you. Oh my God, we're in the middle of this and we losing connection with him. His because he wasn't even sure what he saw, and I think that he spoke to a friend of his that let into. Oh, there you are. You're back.
Yeah. No, I was just gonna say
We lost
probably too long of a story to, burden you guys with now because I know you're wrapping up. But
no, I want this story. But who was your friend that told you that it might have been something else?
Oh, I do have a friend who's pretty much of a UFO skeptic, and he looked into it and saw that there was some kind of a launch from Vandenberg Air Force Base, somewhat close to the time we saw this, and we live pretty close to Vandenberg, but
Right.
no, what he was describing to me didn't cut it.
So, skeptics are always wrong with their information. They always are.
Yeah, that's true. But it was wild, man, because the first night that it happened, we just figured it was a one-off and we'd seen it and maybe never would again in our lifetime.
Right.
And then the next night, we saw something a little bit different, but just as strange the next night. And at 3 a.m, I'd gone to sleep, and my wife shook me and said, "Oh my God, Tracy, they're back. You got to get up, come out in the balcony." And I was groggy. I was really tired at the time. I was thinking of not even bothering, but then I thought, what an idiot. I've got to go at least look. And we walked back out on the balcony, and this whole new series of events was going on in the sky.
Amazing.
And, yeah, it really was. It really was.
You finally got your close encounter that I've always wanted, I've still never gotten.
Exactly. I thought I never would, Gary. I thought that, enough time had gone by where I was just never going to see anything. I can tell you really quickly, whenever I was around people that I knew had really good close encounters, I used to ask them in great detail to describe them to me. I mean, so I could sort of, relive it vicariously with them. And I was so envious of these things that had been seen. And I really did never think I was going to have it happen to me. And it happened to me 2 straight nights. So
I am so envious of you, man, that you finally got to see something.
Yeah.
Because, we're close in age. We're 5 years apart in age. And I used to drive out to country roads in Virginia and just park and just wait for a close encounter. Don told me, he says, be careful what you wish for, because I actually wanted to be abducted too. I'm like, I want to find out what this is like, but nothing ever happened to me, man. I never saw anything. It's always bugged me. Even when I was in the military, I was always watching. And God, that's so amazing that you had it happen.
I've got to admit one quick thing. Since we talked about abductions, the second night, our house was literally surrounded by anywhere from like 9 to 12 objects and disappeared.
Now, were these solid objects or were they UAPs, like light phenomena? What were they?
Well, no, that's what was interesting. It was almost like in between the two. I mean, I never saw, anything that was like a disc or anything, but they were
triangle.
Yeah, but they were definitely not just lights in the sky or fuzzy lights flying around the stars. These were, I would call them solid objects. And the second night,
Fascinating.
when they were all around our house, I got to admit that in the back of my mind, I've had so many abduction stories that I was involved with where they started with something like that, and then it led into an abduction. And I was thinking, well, maybe I'm about to be an abductee. And then I thought, no, don't be ridiculous. And I put it out of my mind. But it did occur to me, going all the way back to Betty and Barney Hill. It started just with a strange light they saw in the sky.
Right.
So it was wild, man. And I'm still, even as I talk to you guys about it, I'd still sort of pinch myself that it really happened.
Oh, I get it. I get it.
Mhm.
That whole self-doubt thing. It's like, did I really see what I think I saw?
Right, right. Yeah.
And I can hardly wait. I hope I get a moment like you did, Tracy. And God bless you for being here. I thank you so much, my friend,
my
for
pleasure.
joining us today. And Don, I want to hear your MUFON story because I don't think Dave heard your MUFON story.
Okay, well, this was actually before I even began working with UFO Magazine. At the time, I was living up in the state of Idaho in Boise. And I've had a UFO interest going back literally to when I was a kid. I had a rather extraordinary sighting in '66. I began reading a lot of the data that was out there, books by people like Frank Edwards, John Keel. When I came back from the Army, I think it was like 75, he came out with the Mothman prophecies. Then I discovered Zachariah Sitchin. I became very good friends with Zachariah. So I had an interest for a long time. So in 87, 88, I met the state director for MUFON up in Idaho, a guy by the name of Don Mason. Now, Don was a real go-getter, okay? This was a guy who really wanted to be a mover and a shaker. Now, I had no knowledge at the time about MUFON, as I later became very familiar with MUFON. But Don had asked me if I would become one of his state section directors. So for 1 year, I joined MUFON. He appointed me as state section director. And one of the things that he wanted to do was to put together a fast reaction outfit, okay, for sightings and cases and incidents that happened. And being in Idaho, we were surrounded by states that had experienced inordinate amounts of sightings and things like cattle mutilations. Now,
right.
Back in 81, 82, as a criminal investigator, I had investigated that came my way. I was assigned what ended up being 2 cases of cattle being mutilated. And there was no conclusion.
Right?
Yes. No conclusion ever became of those 2 cases.
I want to point out something before you continue. A lot of people don't know what the scariest part of these mutilations is that these cattle are insanguinated, completely drained of their fluids.
That's right.
And that's not normal. That doesn't happen in nature. You will have spillage. There's no spillage around these cattle, mutilated cattle bodies. That's impossible. So go ahead, Don. I'm sorry.
Well, and also let's not forget the fact that a cow, a bovine animal, has a lot of blood.
A lot.
Okay. And it's gone in some way, almost, I don't want to say instantaneously, but whatever the process is, those animals are drained of blood pretty quick. So anyway, so what Mason did at the time, the Mutual UFO Network was being run out of Texas. The international director and the man that founded MUFON was a guy by the name of Walter Andrus. And as I later discovered, when I started doing some investigations about MUFON, after what I'm about to tell you happened to me, I discovered that originally Andrus and a number of other people like John Schuessler, another name in the MUFON hierarchy, had originally been members of APRO, the Aerial Phenomena Research Organization, one of the very earliest, if not the earliest, civilian UFO research group ever put together back around like 1953, 54, by a husband and wife team by the name of Coral Lorenzen and her husband, Jim. Okay. Now, Andrus in the 60s basically raided their files, stole data from Jim and Coral to begin his own organization without asking permission. He just arbitrarily took all these files and began contacting these people to begin MUFON. A lot of people may not be aware of that. And to the day she died, Coral Lorenzen would not have pissed on Walt Andrus if he caught on fire. Okay, she hated him that bad for what he did. Well, Don Mason called Walt up. This is circa 87, 88, and said, Walt, this is my idea, something I want to do. I want to put together a fast reaction force that can hit the states of Nevada, Idaho, Washington, Oregon, Montana, because we are having all these cases, all these sightings, these cattle mutilations. I want to have a fast reaction force where I can send investigators out there right away. So what I would like you to do, there is no master directory of MUFON that's available. I'd like to get the names from you, Walt, the international director, of state directors for these states and their section directors, so I can contact them and see if I can start putting this program together. Well, Andrus totally refused. My suspicion is that Walt Andrus was afraid that he might do to Walt what Walt did to Jim and Coral Lorenzen. Okay, so in 1989, and this is another long story, but I'll just cut to the chase. John Lear, son of William Lear of Learjet fame,
Learjet, yeah,
was the Nevada state director, okay, for MUFON. He was the guy that was asked to put together their international symposium that year, 1989. So I had already met John Lear. That's another story. But John Lear called me up because he was cognizant of an investigation I had started on human mutilations. Okay? In other words, cases where human beings were apparently mutilated just like the cattle. And I had several cases that I was following up on. One of them happened in the state I was then living in Idaho. Okay? So I said, well, John, I'm going to have to think about that, because to tell you the truth, at the time, I was still intimidated by what the hell I was researching. So I thought about it for a while. I talked to a couple of friends about it, and finally I decided, okay, I'll do it. So I called Lear up and I said, sure, I'll do it. I'll come down and do it. I'll fly down. So the day that I flew into Las Vegas, now Lear had put out the basically the notice that not only would MUFON have their typical run-of-the-mill people speaking at this symposium, but he put together a special program with some more, shall we say, inflammatory stuff, which was creating a lot of anti-acid in the hierarchy of MUFON. A lot of people were really upset about this. So I get to the hotel. I'm walking up to the desk. I'm dressed in a suit and tie. I've got my luggage. I've got a laptop computer. I get up to the desk. I set everything down and say, "Hi, my name is Don Ecker. I've got a reservation here." And off to the side of the desk, 3 guys were standing. One very short, older man, and 2 other guys. I had no clue who they were. So when I gave my name, the short guy walked up to me and said, "Are you Don Ecker?" And I looked at him and I smiled. Okay. I said, "Yeah." And I held out my hand. This guy totally ignored it, ignored my hand. And he said to me, "My name is Walt Andrus. I'm the international director of MUFON. And I'm here to tell you, if you speak at John Lear's program, I can promise you, you will never speak again at any other MUFON conference or venue." This is how he introduced himself to me. So I looked at him and I'm thinking to myself immediately, do I tell this guy to go fuck himself or what? No.
Yeah, I figured you'd probably deck him because somebody talked like that to me, I'd fucking consider punching him.
No, the guy was older. He was a little guy, typical little guy, chip in his shoulder type thing. And I could tell that. I mean, hey, I was a cop.
Listen here, Don, you better not talk at Lear's thing.
I was a cop for years. I had to learn how to read people, And I looked at him and I read him right away. This guy's a little freaking Napoleon complex. He's a short guy. He's got a chip in his shoulder. So I just smiled and I said, "Okay." And I pulled my hand back and I checked in and I thought to myself, I'll talk any fucking place I want to talk at. After all, I was the goddamn director of research for fucking UFO magazine, asshole. Do you know what that is? So, that was my MUFON story. And I'll tell you, things with MUFON only went downhill from there.
I'm not surprised because what I ran into is just obstinance. They were very unfriendly, unwelcoming. When I spoke to him at MUFON here in Missouri, and I'm like, "Well, fine, fuck you." Like, who are you? I said, "Well, I'm just a best-selling graphic novel artist. That's all." But anyway, hey, I want to give
real
a
quick.
Shout out
I had a
to
question.
You,
yeah,
man.
John Lear, didn't he try to get a elemental like him and Ron Hubbard were hanging out and they were trying to do some black magic, and then he ran off with his wife down to Florida?
You're thinking of Jack Parsons.
That's it. Sorry. All right.
Jack Parsons. They made a show about him, Mad.
Did they?
A TV show on NBC. Came out like a year ago.
Really?
It was called Dark Angel. And they glamorize him, man. This guy was a psycho. He's a scary dude.
He was also,
let's be fair.
Let's be fair. He was the guy that started JPL.
That is true.
Laboratory.
It's true.
Yep.
It's true. But I got to tell you guys, I'm glad you spoke up, Matt. I was worried you'd stepped away. I'm looking forward to the after show. The link has been sent to the private group for all our members. And I want to thank Anima for being the woman that loves me for some weird reason. Kingsport Cal for just being weird and cool. And of course, I can't say the same thing for Monkey Jeebus. Thank you, comic. And but thank you for being just weird, Monkey Jeebus, because you're weird as fuck. I love you, man. I want to thank everybody in the chat. I'm going to start with Das Wolfen was here, John. Monkey Jeebus, thank you, come again. Anima Confusa, love of my life. Penny, Scott Lewis, Alatar, Zachara 315, D-Bud Martin, Heidi Marks joined us. That is a friend of Anima's. Real Wade Nation, Scribe Blight, Kingsport Cow, Tin Man, Decepticons Cave of Villains, Zax, aka Kyle, Mark Center, Fish Belly, LDG Free the Net, Glenn Fleming from the UK, Hex Allen Comics, Mad Chismo, who is in the show with us right this second, Adega Outlaw, Washid Leaky, Kylock, who just joined us, and I hope you're doing well, my friend. We're ending the show. Tracy Tormé, a guest. God, I love you, man. You're so cool. Please go out and enjoy one of the best episodes of Star Trek Next Generation, written by Tracy, which was called The Big Goodbye. It was the first introduction of, I forgot the detective's name. What's his name?
Dixon
Tracy?
Hill.
Dixon Hill. What a great character. So go watch that episode today and appreciate some of the great writing that Tracy Tormé has done. And of course, I do want to mention that one of the people in the chat said, Tracy, that aliens came to your house because they're big fans of Mel, your dad.
Oh, wow.
So
that's pretty interesting theory.
That was by Monkey Jeebus. I want to thank everybody for watching the show today. And thank you, Tracy. Thank you, Don, for being my co-host on this show. What happened? We just lost Matt. Damn it. Anyway, have a great day today. It's Wednesday, man, middle of the week, hump day. And despite what you think, this was the worst Wednesday ever. Because I am the comic guy. When I pull my hair back in a ponytail, people go, "Oh, you're the comic guy." I'm like,
"That's a man bun. That's a man bun. Damn it."
I wear a ponytail, mister. But I want to thank everybody for being here, and we will see you tomorrow for Fantasy Day, where we talk about House of the Dragon. Anima will be joining us, and hopefully some others. We'll see you then. Have a good day today. And hey, man, we love you.
Thanks, Gerry.
Abri, that's all, folks.